Hi kids, this is Mrs. Raposa, and your hybrid out homework this time is going to be on solving proportions. So you're going to complete all 20 problems, but I'm going to actually do some of these with you right now, at least 4 of them. So let's start with number 1. So what does it mean to solve a proportion? A proportion is just two fractions set equal to each other, basically. A ratio. This is a ratio, this is a ratio, and the two ratios are set equal to one another. If there's an equal sign between the two ratios or fractions, and only if there's an equal sign, we can use what I call the cross products. So I'll know that these two things multiplied together, 8 and n, will equal these two things multiplied together, 10 times 10. So we can set up an equation right here. I'll know that 8 times n, which is 8n, is going to have to equal, because there's an equal sign between them, 10 times 10. And so I go to the next line and I just write down 8n equals 100 because that's what 10 times 10 is. And now to solve this equation, I'm just going to divide each side of the equation by 8, which is really hard to show using a typewriter. So I'm just going to say 8n divided by 8 will just give me n. And on the other side, 100 divided by 8 is 12.5. To check my answer, I would go to my calculator and I would see if 10 divided by 8 is the same as 12.5 divided by 10. 12.5 is n. 10 divided by 8 when you put it into the calculator will give you 1.25. And when you do n divided by 10 or 12.5 divided by 10, you will also get 1.25. So yes, these are equal. Let's do another one when the denominator is, or the numerator has 2 terms in it instead of just 1 term like these do. And then I'll come back and take a look at number 5. So for number 6, I'm going to use the same method. I'm going to say that 10 times b plus 5, but notice I'm multiplying 10 by 2 terms. So I'm going to have to put that b plus 5 in parentheses because it's 2 terms. And I'm going to set that equal to 7 times 5. So what I'll have down here is 10 times b plus 5 in parentheses, because it's a 2-term expression, is going to equal 7 times 5. I'm just going to multiply it here and just put 35. Now I use the distributive property. 10 times b and 10 times 5 will give me 10b plus 50 after I use the distributive property equals 35. And to solve this equation, I start by undoing this addition with subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 50 from both sides of the equation. And now I'm left with just 10b on the left because these two cancel out. So 10b equals 35 minus 50. I'm subtracting more than what I have, so I know it's a negative number. And that's going to have me 15 in the negative. And to undo this, I'm just going to divide each side by 10. So 10b divided by 10 would give me just b. And negative 15 divided by 10 will just be negative 1.5. So that is my final solution for this one. And again, I could check my answer by plugging it in. So before I plug it back in, I'm just going to erase some of these markings that I put on here so that we can see what the original equation was. So let's replace the b with negative 1.5. That will give me 7, and draw. 7 divided by negative 1.5 plus 5, that's positive 3.5. So I'll have 7 divided by 3.5. And when you put that into the calculator, 7 divided by 3.5 is 2. And that's the same thing as this fraction, which equals 10 over 5. So yeah, 10 divided by 5 is the same thing as 7 divided by negative 1.5 plus 5. It checks. Let's take a look now at number 5. So number 5, I could use the same strategy. 8 times 3 equals 4 times x. But some of you may just look at it and say, hey, wait a second. 4 times 2 would give me 8. So I just multiply the numerator times 2, which is kind of hard to write here, times 2. That's a multiplication sign. So I would have to multiply the denominator by 2 also, and I would get 6. So 4 times 2 is 8, 3 times 2 is 6, and 8/6 does reduce to 4/3. So that's an easy one to figure out just by looking, but if you didn't see it right away, You could do 8 times 3. Oh, I missed. Let's see. Not easy with this. So 8 times 3, which would be 24, would equal 4 times x, which is just 4x. So 24 equals 4x, and you would divide each side by 4. And when you do that, you're going to get 6 on this side. So 24 divided by 4 is 6. So 6 is equal to x, or x equals 6, and that is the answer we got when we just multiplied the numerator and denominator, both by 2. So that works. Let's take a look at one that's a little bit more challenging, like the last one, number 20. I think for this one you don't get a pretty whole number. We're going to multiply with cross products. 9 times n minus 7, and I'm going to set that equal to 2 times n minus 6. But remember, the n minus 7 and the n minus 6 are both two-term expressions, so I have to put them in parentheses. So 9 times n minus 7, and I'm going to set that equal to 2 times n minus 6. And I have to use the distributive property twice here. 9 times n is 9n, and then, 9 times negative 7 would be negative 63. So this just becomes 9n minus 63. And on this side, 2 times n is 2n, using the distributive property, and then 2 times negative 6, negative 12. So to undo this, I like to start with the variable terms first. This is the smaller one, so I'm going to subtract 2n from each side so that I end up with a positive coefficient for n. So minus 2n on this side as well. Minus 2n. So on both sides I have minus 2n, and that will give me a new equation. That will give me 7n minus 63 is equal to 2n minus 2n cancels, so just negative 12. Make sure you bring down the negative sign also, and not a positive 12. Then the next step is to add 63 to each side to undo subtraction. Plus 63. And then I'm going to add 63 on this side as well. And that will give me 7n on this side, because these will cancel, and equals negative 12 plus 63 is going to give me 51, positive 51. And now I'm going to divide each side by 7. If I divide each side by 7, I'm going to be left with not a whole number. I end up with 51 divided by 7, so I'll just leave it as a fraction, 51 sevenths. If I want to put it as a mixed fraction, I can write it, let's see, 7 goes into 51 7 times, with 2 of those 7s left over, so I can write it as 7 and 2 sevenths. I think if you put into the calculator, you get like 7.29 or something like that. So yeah, it's not a pretty whole number, and to check that answer, that'd be kind of yucky too. But I do know that that is the answer, 7 and 2 sevenths, or I can call it 7.29, I think is the answer. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4 of them together, and I'm going to have you finish up the rest of them, okay, for homework. If you have any questions, you can always contact your teacher or come to an extra help session.